I'm live, apparently. It says you're live. Hello, everybody out there on YouTube. And I hope you're all keeping well. No, you're not in the wrong place, Joseph. We're just getting up and running there, getting our cables in and stuff. So we know you're. Hopefully, you're all there. Just getting a wee bit fuffled there as we get connected. So thank you very much for joining us again tonight. It's not a great night here, but it's not lashing down at the minute. But it has been lashing down on and off all day. So quite a miserable autumn evening. I hope the weather's a bit better where you are. There we go. There's Joseph. Sorry about that, Joseph. Sometimes just doing a wee bit of a quick switch over and making sure I have enough of the precious fluids to get the episode going. As they say, I like to always talk about the precious bodily fluids. So there we go. And feeling a wee bit less decongested tonight, I think. And hopefully my throat's a bit better. But I do talk an awful lot here. So tonight is all about Pardot Kynes and Liet Kynes, the two planetologists of Dune, that really deliver a lot of Herbert's environmental warnings and also his ecological ideas. Excuse me. Joseph says urine and feces are processed in the thigh bands. Thigh bands, absolutely, the still suit. Preserve your water at all costs. Yes, indeed. So there we go. Sound is good. Thank you, Brad. We're getting better at this, aren't we, folks? I think. So if you have any particular questions about these two, Pardot turns up in the first appendix of Dune. And as we often talk, it's a little mini adventure that some readers are occasionally unaware of. Some of us read appendices and some of us don't, I suppose. So if we do read the first appendix of Dune, what we get is a little adventure set about 2 or 3 generations before the Atreides arrive on Arrakis. And we get a bit of a setup there, really, with Pardot and how he infiltrates the Fremen, his deliberate intent in infiltrating the Fremen, knowing that he has to marry a Fremen to produce a Fremen child so that he can carry on his ecological dream for the planet. Really just shows what quite a single-minded guy he is, I suppose. Pardon me. But also the strong desire to both infiltrate and manipulate the Fremen, and simply put, use them as the geomorphic tools that he needs. So it says a lot about Pardot, I think. And as much as we look at the narrative, the adventure of Dune, Pardot and his son are very, very questionable human beings if we look at them properly. And it's interesting because they're fundamentally tied into the ecological message of Dune. Excuse me, maybe I don't think my throat's that good, actually, folks. We'll have to get some more cough medicine going. Joseph Smith says, I've got to ask, in the new film, Liet is female, and I'm fine with this. But from the understanding I just got, the Fremen culture is male-dominated. No, question mark. So Pardot needed a son, question mark. It was all about, that's a novel way to put it. It's a good point, Joseph. Yes, they're a male-dominated society. They're patriarchal, if you want. And you're saying the new Liet is female, but from the understanding I got, the Fremen culture is male-dominated. So Pardot needed a son. I think so, but not necessarily. I think there's other leadership positions. So a daughter could have done the job, I think, as well. So Pardot has a son, Liet has a daughter, if you see what I mean. I don't think it makes much difference in terms of it's about being someone who's a proper Fremen, I think. So as much as Pardot will always be seen as an outsider, the Fremen view him differently because they think he's mad in a holy way. They call him a sadist, I think is the term. But for him to really get his ideas and their long-term ideas, he will need to have a son, or I suppose that's the way he looks at it. I'm not sure if he actually says that he needs to have a child or a son specifically. Excuse me. So that I must check that. It's possibly there in the quotes actually, but Yeah, it's the marrying into the Fremen is actually part of his manipulation. So yeah, they are a male dominated culture. Just reading the book again, and as much as we talk about strong feminine roles within strong female roles within the Dune universe, we kind of split that into the Bene Gesserit. And we go, wow, aren't they admirable? But within the Fremen, we do have a society. For example, sorry, that's our doggies going bark bark. Um, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? No, I've told. Huh? Strong women in the Fremen. Oh, thank you, love. Strong women in the Fremen. But I was just reading in June. I'm almost right at the very. In fact, I'm at the very end of June, just about to finish it, and we get the sense that Chani is sent away with the other women, etc. And there's so there's different associations within the male female hierarchies of the Fremen. I suppose they do have I suppose a religious female leader in the Sayadines. But yeah, it's a good point, Joseph. So the gender swap is a bit of a problem we've discussed in terms of what Liet Kynes represents, which is Western man. But otherwise, it doesn't. Well, it depends on how diluted or how well presented Herbert's ideas of ecology are. That's what I'm really interested to see in the film, because my understanding is that the three major elements that promote ecology from Frank Herbert's viewpoint in the Dune novel, and first and foremost is Liet Kynes, I suppose, representing Western man systemic thinking and Western man's approach to nature. The second big thing that's in the book really is the banquet scene, which is sets out a lot of the ecological ideals again from Kynes, and again also sets out a lot of the political power plays there as well. And I suppose the planet itself, Arrakis, as we looked at in our last episode, is a teacher in terms of ecology. Excuse me. So, but it's a very particular lesson about leadership that emerges on an ecological platform, and that's what Liet and Pardot represent. The dangerous views of Western man, the Western man's systemic approach to nature. Um, Brad Rose all about. That's a novel way of putting it. Yes, we were talking about earlier, Brad. Joseph Smith says, you feel the Fremen would fully accept Liet because her blood is sort of special. I can relate to that. Fully accept Liet. Oh, I'm not too sure. Thanks for that, by the way. Getting the doggies under control. Fremen would fully accept Liet because her blood is sort of special. I'm not too sure what if you've seen the film, Joseph. You maybe know something that we don't. Liet, I suppose, ultimately is born of a Fremen mother. I suppose that's the way. But I think again, Frank Herbert presents it in the section where we see Liet's death. Really, that he's not a true Fremen either, and I think this is Leto's criticism of Paul as well. Chair dogs. What about chair dogs? Talk about my dogs. Oh dear. I think it's that I'm a chair for the dogs sometimes. Joseph, I don't know if any of you have read Ian Banks's The Bridge, but there's a very funny moment in that book where there's a man inside a psychiatrist's office, and it's a joke about, does he think he's a chair? There's a man sitting on him, and he goes, "Don't be silly, man. He's the chair. I think he's a pillow," or something like that. And it's a good one. But yeah, R2 are playing up a wee bit at the minute. Joseph, I'm assuming then maybe you haven't seen the film, Joseph. My understanding, and possibly someone who's seen it can check in on this, but my understanding is the banquet scene's missing from the film, which was one of them, which made me go, oh. So I'm not too sure if it's in there, and the message about Western man being put onto a woman is possibly, so it really is an issue of, is there anything to do? I'm wondering what's surviving of Frank Herbert's ecological message at the minute in the film, because from what I can gather, it's not looking good. In terms of all other things, Dune, I think it is looking good, but that possibly has probably had input from film people to try and make it more modern. I don't know. Um, Joseph said, I'm just trying to make the swap work in a way that is more meaningful to me than just swapping her for the hype. Uh, oh, sorry, you're looking forward to the bank. Oh, excellent. Well, yeah, I mean, the banquet scene's really important. And thanks for that, Joseph. Um, we've got the Fremen as geomorphic agents next, and then we're going to have a look at the banquet scene. And it's really important, and it kind of it echoes things like the play within a play in Hamlet, and is possibly even sort of a bit of an echo to the banquet scene in Macbeth, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a literary device in some ways, taking this little scene aside and having everybody interact. But it really does explore the workings of the planet and shows you, I suppose, that the different interactions. You get the link between the Fremen, the smugglers, and Kynes in there. Excuse me. You get the water sellers. You get the guild, you get the Harkonnen agents, you get the various different players within the city of Arrakis, etc. And it's got so much in it, and it's a scene that nearly erupts into violence twice, as I recall. So, to be honest with you, if it's not in the film, I'm going to be genuinely gutted, because it's a film in the hands of somebody like a good director like Denis Villeneuve. It's an absolute scene of high tension, and it's not just extrapolation for its effect. If you see what I mean, it's a really good, explains a lot, really informs you about Dune more than almost anything else, I think, apart from maybe the appendices. So there we go. So yeah, I think, and ultimately, as I said, that we've talked about the gender swap because of what the character represents, and we have it quoted away there: Western man, and the systemic approach, um, you know, to ecology, to all sorts of things, and it ties into the what Herbert would call the Presbyterian fixation, which, excuse me, which he associates a lot with authors like Isaac Asimov. Simply put, the Presbyterian fixation is, no matter what your problem is, we can come up with a new piece of technology to fix it. Bosh, and that's it. We don't look any further than the front of our noses, if you see what I mean. Um, so it's again the lessons that are hammered in is all about understanding consequences, which is what Herbert looks at as Herbert views ecology as the study of the understanding of consequences. Of course, we know now that that's a quote from Paul Bigelow Sears, and actually that's to do with science in general. Is about understanding consequences, I think. So Herbert takes things and phrases from other people's work, changes a couple of words, and throws it down as his own idea. And then, but that particular thing is the one that he likes to pretend he didn't know where he got it from, and he actually knows very rightly if you follow his own work and his own referencing. So it's kind of one where he shot himself in the foot there, I think. Um, but yeah, I really do hope there's some element of the banquet scene in the film. To be honest with you, totally felt that inspiration in that scene. Yeah, it's a lot. There's so much going on, and it's also, by the way, Leto the first has to walk out quite early on in that scene, and what you're getting to see is Paul take on the mantle of command within the family household in a political setting. But I think it's quite a funny scene as well, because as much as there's a lot of posturing, there's also a lot of very, very dangerous people in the room, and some of them are a lot more dangerous than others. And particularly Kynes is considered particularly dangerous. Blatantly threatens, I think, the banker at one point. Are you calling me out, sir? So you've got a lot of no, 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 please don't hurt me kind of thing. So it's a fun scene. It's very entertaining in the book. It's quite gripping, and it works on several levels. But it's the power play politics in particular, the different agencies, and it gives you a sense of the hydraulic despotism. You get idea of control from different groups. For example, the water seller can be quite rude to Duke Leto in his own house. Why? Because he controls the water. It's as simple as that. And he's showing that he's not the powerful lord of a big house like all these other people, but he's showing everybody in the room that he is powerful in his own way. If you see what I mean. So there's so much goes on in the banquet scene, and probably with the size of June, I suppose it may have been something that, again, I don't know if it's been cut or not, but it is an important scene, I think. I think sometimes audiences are a wee bit wary of extrapolation heavy scenes, or that kind of thing. But it is handled quite well in the book, I think. Let's catch up with your comments, guys. Any questions on the Kynes family, or the ecology, or the idea of planetology, and also with Liet? Remember that Liet is the planetologist because his father's the planetologist. So as much as they kind of integrate within the Fremen, he's the one good example of someone operating within the Faufreluches feudal system. In other words, his job is what his father's job was, and that sort of matches up with your point earlier. Was it you that said? Let me see. Was it you, Joseph? It was about the kind of male-female structure within the universe, that it is a feudal structure. So, but again, Liet is the planetologist, simply put, because his father is the planetologist. Therefore, we would kind of expect Chani to become the planetologist of the Empire after her father's death, if you see what I mean. But she's not raised or brought up that way, and she's probably more true Fremen, I would imagine. Let's have a wee look. Brad says, also shows how the Bene Gesserit can read behaviour, showing another thing that sets them apart, or denotes another thing that makes Paul and Jessica special. And we sook. I want to hear that sounds for real. That's the call of the water seller, isn't it? And has it also with the sook doctors as well? That's a double meaning within. There's I think several layers of meaning for sook within the Dune series itself. But absolutely, it's the whole thing is kind of it's pretty much Jessica and Paul reading everybody at the table, and Jessica getting to observe Paul use his Bene Gesserit training to see if he can keep a hand on this dinner and not lose face. And it's especially kind of because there is some open insulting going on, if you see what I mean. And it also kind of shows that as Kynes is giving his lesson within the surrounds of the conversation and all the hidden meanings and subtleties within it, Paul's also able to demonstrate that he can see the underlay of what's going on, but also gets an understanding for the nature of the planet and for what Kynes is saying. And I think he talks about it where he demonstrates that competition. He talks about competition coming from your similar kind, and he takes the food from his companion's plate, etc. So the banquet scene's really good because it is showing Paul operating as essentially the leader of a noble house for the first time, and that if he's been trained, the leader has to go, and that's it. He's the firstborn son. He's in charge, and he handles himself very well. Brad says, is it the planetologist for the entire empire or just Dune? Oh, just Dune, I pretty much think. He's the planetary ecologist for Arrakis, as far as I understand, Brad. But excuse me, it's the Kynes themselves that say, oh, we prefer the term planetologist. So I'd imagine that each planet within the empire has an ecologist or a planetologist that reports to the empire. And we have to assume that the empire is in many ways invested, at least in ecology, because of the planetary botanical testing stations that are there. There's David saying, "Oi, dropping to say hi." Hi, David. I'll have to watch the replay later, though. Thanks for the Murcock recommendations. I've started down the Elric rabbit hole, and I'm not looking back. Excellent, David. I hope you enjoy them. I'm actually trying to hunt the first. It's the first two books I'm missing, as always. So I've got. Otherwise, I'll have them all. So honestly, it's one of those things that I've been wanting to read them again for a long time, and haven't done because I'm missing the first book. The other book series that keeps happening to me with is the Lensman series, and I think I have got 1 and 3 or something like that. But yeah, enjoy them. They're really good. They're quick reads, I think, and they have that kind of, if you enjoy reading things like Conan, you'll enjoy them. They're sort of episodic. So they're not too heavy, and they run together. Yeah. Just check. I would read the original ones and just check the order of the the books. But I'd say I think there's seven, what I would call seven originals, and then there's all the rest. But I think again, I haven't seen much Michael Moorcock in bookshops for quite a while. And I know he was pretty prolific when I was reading him in the 80s and 90s, and I met him in the 90s. I met him in London and got him to sign a couple of books. So yeah, it was really nice, and I was a bit starstruck, to be honest. Didn't know what to say to him. Just went, "I love your books. Could you? Thanks very much." And he was jet lagged and quite badly, and he messed up the signing of my book of Behold the Man. So he signed it again. So I've got a double signed Michael Moorcock Behold the Man with a sorry about messing up the signing the first time. So that's maybe meeting Michael Moorcock's story, you know. And yeah, that I must have met him in 1993, I think. Going back a bit, I think I met him and Ian Banks for the first time in the same year. I think that's when I was living in London. But the tale says, after looking into it, I realized that the video game series called Legacy of Kain is heavily inspired by Elric Stormbringer's stories. Somebody was mentioning that the other day. I think it might have been, I can't remember who it was, might have been Grimdark, but I don't think I've played the Legacy of Kain games. But yeah, I think there's a lot of influence of Stormbringer and the Elric series, and a lot of Michael Moorcock stuff out there in general. The game had some phenomenal writing for a video game series. Joseph Smith saying Legacy of Kain was pretty fun, if I recall. Yeah. I think I remember the game, but I don't think I had it. If you see what I mean. Never had too much money, so I had to choose my games carefully. Oh dear. But I have a theory about this. I mean, we talked about George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire and how derivative it is of several things, but particularly the Elric stories with is it the Valyrians or whatever they're called. I mean, it's incredible. And I think a lot of this stuff goes on. I see a fair bit of it. It would depend on how well you know material. And there was a film a while back, for example, which I quite enjoyed, and it's The Book of Eli. I don't know if anybody knows it. Science fiction film with Denzel Washington and who else is in it? Gary Oldman. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's quite good. But it seems to be, to me, it's a. I've taken two or three science fiction books, put them together, and got a new story. And as much as the story is kind of new and fresh, it's not, because I think the elements of the science fiction that it's lifted from are quite obvious to maybe to someone like me. You know, but I thought it had a lot of Canticle for Leibowitz. I thought it had a lot of Fahrenheit 451, quite frankly. And a couple of other things about the retrieval of information, if you like, in a post-apocalyptic world. Joseph Smith, really? Yeah, Denzel is my second pick for casting Shaddam. Who's your first choice? Joseph. I think I just answered my own question, by the way. I know who I'd pick for Shaddam the Fourth. Oh, actually, no, I wouldn't. You know what? I wouldn't at all. I wouldn't. I was just going to say I'd pick Gary Oldman for Shaddam the Fourth, but you went for Daniel Day-Lewis. But for the Emperor, I think. I actually think that if you had to cast Casimir Fenring, I think Gary Oldman would be perfect for it. You if you see what I mean. It just got me there. But Daniel Day-Lewis for the Emperor. I don't know. I'm trying to. You need someone who looks really young to play the Emperor, but has if you understand, I think the Emperor is meant to look about 25. I don't think we've seen him in part one of the film either, have we? I don't know who would play. I thought Jose Ferrer playing the Emperor was really good. I mean, he's an excellent actor in the David Lynch film, but he looked too old. If you see what I mean. Any other ideas on casting the Emperor and Casimir Fenring? Let us know, folks. Brad says, off topic, but still on Dune. Does the orange in the Orange Catholic Bible represent the Protestant Church? Yes. I know. Yes, it does. I know the color is strongly related to Protestantism, both in Northern Ireland and in the Netherlands. Yes, it's a link to the House of Orange, Brad, as well. This is is an extinct line of the Dutch royal family. and excuse me, the current royal family in the Netherlands, I believe you could, if I'm not an expert on such things, but I think is called the House of Orange Nassau. They have Orange Day in Holland and in the Netherlands, which I've been to. It was good fun. But yes, and so the flag of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, is green, white, and orange. A lot of people will say it's green, white, and gold, but it's actually green, white, and orange to represent the two different sides of Irish society. So there you go. Hope that, but yes, it is. It's very much representing the Orange Catholic Bible. If you get the fact that it's meant to be a universal, and within kind of Protestantism and Catholicism and Christianity, the word Catholic itself means universal or ubiquitous. So, but it's really meant to be to represent as much as we get the hybrids of the more Eastern religions. That's the wrong thing to say, isn't it? I suppose. But I suppose, yeah. Well, we get hybrids of Buddhism and Islam, for example. But the OC Bible, that's the hybrid of the Protestant Catholic. That's the Christian hybrids there, and so it's meant to be an all-encompassing book that is a hybrid of lots and lots of different religions. So yes, it is meant to represent Protestantism. Always imagined Fenring with dark skin. Again, I'm kind of colorblind in Dune. To me, it was more that he's like he's like a wee. There's something, I don't know, something Weasley's fox-like, if you see what I mean. But he's meant to not be overt, if you see what I mean. He's meant to be a very subtle, like a dandy, almost, a fop, is someone who emits the appearance of being kind of obsequious and almost slimy, if you like, serpentine. But there's something extremely deadly about this guy. But everything about him is there's more description, I think, around what he's not. I suppose I think he when he's described in the book, he's really it's just he marks your attention, and of course then he's that thing that turns up at the end that is the one person that's a very good example of Frank showing you, look at this dangerous thing here. And it's that thing there that's the really dangerous thing. Let's see, Carol Emperor suggesting Mahershala Ali. I don't know who that is. Never heard of them. I'm very not up to date on modern actors. Let's have a look. Kobe and yeah, so actually it would have to be a young actor, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got quite an imposing. Yeah, he's got quite an imposing face. He's got an air of regality to him. He would look quite a good emperor, I think. Yeah, got to have the red hair on, but yeah, we want some. There's descriptions of the emperor, and even to the point where almost right up to the end, he doesn't lose that sense of regality. He has a presence. If he's the emperor of 1,000 worlds, so he's got to be an actor, I think, that's not just, I don't necessarily say physically striking, but their presence has to be right. If they should carry themselves well, have a strong personal manner, if you see what I mean. Swagger, possibly. So just going by that actor's face, but yeah. But I don't know who that actor is. I don't think I've seen them in anything at all. Don't see a lot of stuff these days. I'm really not fresh with a lot of young actors, I suppose. Yeah, I'm very badly out of touch. I mean, I wouldn't really have known Timothy Chalamet, to be honest with you. Have I seen anything prior to Dune? Haven't really heard of him. Genuinely, so, and it's not that he's not famous, it's just give you an example of how out of touch I am, that's all, folks. So keep your suggestions coming. We'll see if I've heard of them or not. Jake Gyllenhaal for Fenring, says Carol. Joseph was saying that choice for Emperor is good. What's that actor been in, guys? Let me know. I'll check him out. Jake Gyllenhaal for Fenring, even if his character gets reduced to more of a cameo at the end of part 2 or something. Well, that's kind of what happens with Fenring. But it's just one of those. It should be kind of an interesting walk on part. I think there's only really two scenes with Fenring and his wife as well. Actually, um, I'll tell. I don't know if any of you know British TV particularly well, but if we were living in a different era and you'd ask me who to cast as Fenring and Margot Hasamir and Margot Fenring, I'd pick Felicity Kendall and Peter Bowles. I don't know if you know who I mean from. Oh goodness, is it To the Manor Born? That TV show. If you type, if it's a '70s TV show, but they have the absolute right air, I think, in my mind, for those two characters. So you'd need a kind of modern day equivalent, I think. Let's see. So yeah, Gyllenhaal. Yeah, yeah. I watched the most recent Spider-Man film with him as the bad guy, and I thought he was quite good in it. He's not a bad actor. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But the right. I say he's a bit older, but he can probably better make up look the right age. Uh he's pretty weird. Oh, that's right. I missed one there. Hang on, Gyllenhaal's in the back. Brad Rose says, "Thank you. I've always thought that the orange, but never had anyone to confirm my suspicion." Yes, indeed. Um, Karen says, "Yes, he's pretty weird and sly and Nightcrawler." Yeah, watch that film, Karen. That was a good one. Uh, yeah, trying to think. Am I pronouncing his name right? By the way, I don't know. Is it Gyllenhaal or Gyllenhaal? No idea. It's one of those. Femming, I pictured him as how Tom Cruise looked as Louis the Vampire. Really, Babs? Hmm. Maybe Tom Cruise for the Emperor. I suppose he has that kind of Peter Panish type. Doesn't seem to get old too much, doesn't he? Like Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I don't know actually. I don't. Something like Wormtongue. Yeah, he's this very clever, but much more deadly. I think. You get the sense almost that Hasamir Fenring is a Gom Jabbarn himself, if you see what I mean. Um, but yeah, something like that. But I don't know. It's an intriguing. We've seen the character only represented once on the miniseries, and I thought the actor did a reasonable job of it. But he didn't leap off the screen at me the way he should have. I think Fenring's a character that should just go, well, hey, both him and his wife should just really, who are these? They turn up on Gedi Prime, muck around, and disappear, and then they're at the end of the film. And of course, what they do there, um, if we read the book carefully, um, the Harkonnens' fate is kind of set with those two already. It's interesting. Don't want to give away too much if anybody's not reading, hasn't got through the book yet. Joseph, yeah, I've got to get out more. Yes, indeed, I do. Well, I haven't got out much in the last couple of years, to be honest, Joseph. Um, he was good in The King, Chalamet. I mean, yes, I saw that advertised. I haven't seen it. The Good Life. That's yeah. Who did I say? Felicity Kendall. Not Felicity Kendall. Sorry, Penelope Keith. I'm getting, yeah, Penelope Keith and Peter Bowles. Penelope, yes, Felicity Kendall's in The Good Life with Penelope Keith. Brad, who I meant was Margot Fenring, Penelope Keith, and her husband Hasamir Fenring, Peter Bowles from To the Manor Born. Is that not To the Manor Born? The Good Life? No. Oh goodness, not To the Manor Born, is it? Hang on. Oh yeah, it is To the Manor Born. For a minute, I thought I was getting it mixed up with All Creatures Great and Small. Great British TV sitcoms. But to me, in my mind, Hasamir and Margot, that's what they look like to me. They're that kind of posh English, quite funny. But I know they're very different characters in the book. But if you gave them a look, I'd think of them. But Abigail's Party, I suppose, maybe some of it. It's just those little connections you make in your own head, I suppose. Oh, nobody really knows how to pronounce it. What's that? Timothy Chalamet, I believe. Uh, Chalamet. So I'm assuming it sounds a bit like there's a. I wonder what the etymology of Chalamet is. It's probably French, but there's a word very much like calumet is a peace pipe, isn't it? Um, from Native American culture, I believe. But yeah, and The Good Life is good. Yeah, Penelope Keith's in The Good Life, Brad. So she's your Margot. She would be, if we were going back a bit in time, I think she'd be perfect for Margot Fenring. Great shows if anybody hasn't watched them, by the way. The Good Life and To the Manor Born. I think really funny. Joseph says nobody really knows how to pronounce. Well, I'll not worry about it too much, Joseph. Brad says you'll call me an idiot, but for the Emperor, I reckon a youngish Johnny Cash, smooth looking with that voice. Oh, he's a great voice, Johnny Cash. Well, we're picking people our I suppose our favourites from the past and the present. It doesn't really matter, you know. But there's often things that we think. Oh, I suppose a lot of us maybe do think of things like that we think, oh, if ever that gets made into a film, I think your mom or your mum would be a really good person to play that role. You know, it's probably we'd probably do quite a lot of speculating like that. Occasionally, there's a film or a book that comes along. Maybe it's sometimes because the author, the director, or the writer has worked out. I'm going to create a character based on an actor, and that's particularly good. Sometimes, whenever something's written for an actor, that the part fits them like a glove. Really, you know. But there we go. So, any more questions, folks? We're coming up with suggestions to play the Emperor and the Hansamir and Margot Fenring. I think these are quite fun. I still can't think of who would make a good Emperor. In terms of, I suppose you need an actor around. I said they're mid to late 20s, really, don't you? Possibly a bit older, someone who looks that age anyway. But absolute, they should have. Grace and gravitas, I think, whoever they are. Joseph's going Gyllenhaal. I think he'd be a good one. Yeah, it's interesting to wonder, I suppose, who, because we have a lot of kind of parts that aren't cast. I suppose if we can choose anyone from any time, I want a young James Earl Jones, or the dude that played Spartacus, Kirk Douglas. Yeah, would make a great emperor, wouldn't he? I suppose, yeah. James Earl Jones, I think, was saying is in terms of villains in movies, all-time favorite for me is False Doom and Conan the Barbarian. I think he's absolutely supreme in that film. I love him in that film. I'm just highly entertaining. In fact, he's my favorite thing in Conan the Barbarian. By the way, is James Earl Jones. Love him in it more than anything else. He's hilarious. Oh, nobody knows how to pronounce Gyllenhaal or Gyllenhaal. The conversation didn't keep pace. That was my bad, Joseph. It's okay. I think we had a couple, but I'm assuming Timothy Chalamet is the. I heard somebody calling him Timothée, and I didn't know if that was what is real. Is he called Timothée Chalamet, or is it Timothy Chalamet? And it's generally starting to confuse me. Excuse me. Joseph says, I heard your take on James Earl Jones and Conan, and I agree. It's probably one of the most underrated performances ever, I think. And making him look, and the idea is to make him look like a kind of Atlantean, and but it's a combination of the voice, the armor, the sword, the attitude, and he's so funny. And come, my child, come. And the whole, crucify him. It's the whole the way it's the religious mystique that he brings to it, that he's it's kind of that he is also a snake oil salesman at the end of the day, but he really is a giant snake, if you see what I mean. Now that's power, he's just absolutely super charismatic in that film. Possibly one of my favorite villains of all time is James Earl Jones, and to me, it's actually him that makes it so rewatchable. I think he. Who else is it, by the way? I mean, Max von Sydow is in there as the king briefly, and you give an actor, you've got an actor of that quality, and you give him, he's got a couple of minutes on the screen, and he's fantastic. So I love the film, and for lots of reasons, actually, Conan the Barbarian. I've watched there's a document. I have a 2-disc version of it, and it has an audio commentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger and John Milius that's kind of a bit uncomfortable to listen to, and it's not because of John Milius. And I think John Milius is very much trying to keep things on track, but Arnie's a bit okay. and his stories about, do you remember when this girl is not, they're not the nicest of, and you get the sense, well, I got the sense anyway, because I like listening to audio commentaries like that, with a director and an actor. I mean, that Milius is really trying to keep things under control while they're doing this kind of let's chat about it and do a DVD commentary. Excuse me. His eyes are so intense and focused and scary. Well, it's the whole bit where he mesmerizes you at the start of the film of Conan's mum, and he looks into the screen, and he gives you this, this deep, deep sadness, and he kind of turns his head, and you go, "What's going on?" This next thing, it's it's really, as you say, Joseph, it's incredibly good eye acting as well. It is massively underrated performance, I suppose. Totally agree with that statement. That totally underrated performance by James Earl Jones. Absolutely brilliant. Height of his powers, I think. It works for me. Works for me. I think he's the great villain. There's me gushing a bit about James Earl Jones, and why not? So there we go. And I still can't think of a good emperor. I don't know. I suppose, and there should be a sort of kind of similarity in look to Paul, just not the hair. But I think he has this a similar. You should be able to see the familial relationship. I believe, just having read a few wee bits of that. Karen says, "I'll stick to Mahershala Ali for Emperor until they cast someone else." Excuse me. What's that actor been in? Carol, anything good? To check them out. Let's have a look. Oh, he knows he myself, but again, I wouldn't. American actor. What have you been in? Nothing I've seen. Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Oh, he's in the Hunger Games, right? Sporting Roles, Netflix. He's Luke Cage. Haven't seen Luke Cage. Haven't seen The House of Cards either. That's a remake of the British House of Cards. And let's see everything that he's been in. No, no. This guy's got a run of films I have not seen. I'm afraid. That's quite impressive, actually, for me. I've been meaning to watch Green Book, but haven't seen it. And he played, and I didn't know that there was a third series of True Detective. I thought the first series of True Detective was fantastic, and that was it. I was done with it. Didn't really get. Oh, he's going to play Blade. He's the new Blade, right? Okay, excellent. 47. He doesn't look it. But there you go. Yeah, that's an actor who's managed to be in quite a lot of things that I haven't seen. It's quite impressive. I suppose if you think about the 6 Degrees of Separation, or the Kevin Bacon game, that kind of thing. He got Oscars. Oh, he's won Oscars for roles. Carol, if you're curious, he's got Oscars for roles in Moonlight and Green Book. Oh, I'll definitely be checking him out at some point. Karen is spot on here. It says, Joseph, if we have to stick to living actors. Right, so pretty formidable actor then. You think he's got the absolute chops to bring that level of grace, gravitas. This is the Emperor of the known universe, and you know that you're looking at the Emperor. Yeah, sounds good. Are you both on the same page? Green Book. Must have a look. I wanted to have a look at that. We have to stick to that. Oh, unfortunately, we do have to stick to living actors. I don't know if it was if we could go anywhere again, I'd just stick Richard Burton possibly in as the Emperor. I don't know. Axolotl tanks are still some years away. Here's hoping they're quite far away, actually. Wouldn't be a very nice thing, I think. It actually really does. If you ever think about what the axolotl tanks are and what the Bene Tleilax have done to their entire one half of their planetary species, all of one entire gender of their race, if you like, they have imprisoned and turned all of their women into tanks. That's nuts. I mean, but if you think even just the effort required to do that, but it's bonkers. And then you kind of think of we do not think of what the axolotl tanks are. Yeah, they're women. It's the big mystery. Where are all in the Dune series? One of the big mysteries that we do get answered for is it's one that is answered. Where are all the Tleilaxi women? They are the axolotl tanks. particularly when I was trying to get art for that episode, it was not easy to get art that was a bit pushing the limits of taste, shall we say? And I tried to get a sort of go for sci-fi fantasy art that kind of looked a bit similar to Women in Tanks, if you see what I mean. There's a couple of people that done stuff, but I think I used a bit of gear, etc. But yeah, quite horrific concept, really. Plugging women in, just using them as breeding machines, and then later on to produce, actually rather than producing more human beings, they're even using them to produce drugs. Saw a bit about an artificial womb a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. They're not artificial wombs, I suppose. It's just making a machine out of the woman to utilize the womb that they already have. But absolutely, artificial wombs and things like that. These kind of ideas have been around for a while. And we're in a time where technology is advancing exponentially, which is not necessarily a good thing for us. I think we can see a lot of our problems are from how quickly we can keep up with it, or how well we can keep up with it. I think is it Justin Topher's kind of future shock idea is kind of more relevant now than it's ever been. You know, but yeah, if you break it down, they've subjugated the entire gender of their planetary population, and it's nuts. And it's also, I'd imagine, quite a logistical effort, to be honest with you. Excuse me, Doc. This one is random, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. Look up Babacuaria, pronounced BBQ area. BBQ area. Okay, it's an inversion if the Aboriginals landed in Australia and whites were already there. Aboriginal Australians. I always point out the Aboriginals are Romans, by the way, Brad. If you think about it. It's an inversion. It's the Aboriginals. Is that a sci-fi book or Brad, or a early 80s or a TV show or film? I've not heard of it. Sounds fun. I'm curious. Early 80s, very funny. Barbecue area. Barbecue area. It's an inversion of, okay. Yeah, got it. Is it a book or a TV show or a TV show? I get you. I get you. Barbecue area. Barbecue. Got you. As an inversion. There's on YouTube. Oh, okay. I will check that out. That sounds fun. Don't get a lot of Aussie TV here, Brad. We used to get a bit more in the 80s, but it became soaps. I'm sure you know, but Neighbours and that kind of thing. But we did used to get a few things from that were quite good from Australia's time. But the Paul Hogan TV show, and whenever Channel 4 started up, I loved it. But we don't get a lot of Aussie TV over here. Oh, yeah, we watched a good Aussie show not too long ago, and I'll not remember that it was very funny actually. My wife was watching it, and what's the guy's name? The actor Richard something, playing like a really dodgy lawyer. I can't remember the name of it. What's the name of the actor? He would be in quite a lot of Australian films. Works with Baz Luhrmann, I think, a bit. But it was quite a funny show. We export our dross, neighbours, Fosters. Don't drink the Fosters, man. Everybody does that, Brad. Don't feel bad about it. There we go. So let's see. We were kind of running along axolotl tanks, etc. So we've moved a wee bit about there, but the redhead guy. Hi, I don't know if anybody's got any more questions about these two, by the way, Pardot and Liet, or anything to do with the ecology or all things Dune. As I said, fire away. Keep the comments coming. But yeah, just what Karen was saying about the axolotl tanks, they're and then it actually sort of makes you start to wonder a bit about that, because how can they produce? In the end, they end up using them to produce artificial melange. So it is that there's I don't know, they've turned their women into not just a manufactory, but some kind of laboratory as well. Back to topic, please, someone. Joseph Smith something mentioned the worm was part plant. That's correct, Joseph. It has a It's a worm plant hybrid. I'll tell you what. I'll just have a wee look, see what I've got. We were talking yesterday about the worms and the botanic testing stations, and the wee clue in that, I think. Well, this is to do with this, Joseph. How is that, you saying? Well, we don't know, but we're told that the worms are a plant animal hybrid. We were discussing what the animal part is the other day, which is we're pretty much sure that the animal part of the worm, the sandworm, is based on the sea lamprey. It's a very similar life cycle. Physiologically, looks very similar. And we were having a good chat the other day. I think Ether was bringing in possibilities of plants that might operate. That if you could gene splice such a thing, possibly something like a Venus flytrap. So we were asking the question yesterday, Joseph, and it's to do with Arrakis and the planetologists, I suppose. But it was to do about with the botanic testing stations. We know that there's over 200 of these things all over the planet. Pardon me. And it was to do with where do the worms come from? And the interesting thing, guys, that we were talking about was one of the botanic stations, testing stations there for. They're there after the Fremen, but before the discovery of spice, and they're all shut down at once and sealed up. For some reason that isn't made clear, and kind of nobody talks about them anymore. And the Fremen know where they are, and eventually Liet figures out where they are as well through the Fremen and so the Fremen start infiltrating these stations and getting. This is where they get the equipment to begin their ecological transformation, to start cutting at water basins and so on. Yeah, Joseph says, "Oh man, I just put together the testing stations, the water caches." Yeah, so all before the Fremen haven't started this. Once they get in here, this is where they get the equipment. If we read it carefully, there's the section where Paul is given the film book to study. He's studying about Arrakis and the worms, etc. And it gives you we get a list of all the different species that have been. And this is the bit, guys. We've been talking about Earth transplanted and a remnants of, and here's the quote: man's tyrannic past, tyrannic terra, Latin word for Earth. So all of these species come from Earth. And there's one other thing that they say to us, guys, that I was just having a notice at today when we were talking about this, is that the species of animals that are found on Arrakis that were transplanted there from Earth, it says they are no longer found anywhere in the universe. So the suggestion is that their Earth is gone as well, or whatever's happened to Earth. Those animals have been brought to Arrakis for a reason, and it's after the worms have been introduced, because all the other animal plant species have been destroyed. So everything that we have on Arrakis is transplanted. So it's another wee clue, guys. We were talking about where do the worms come from, and and I said we talked about, Joseph. We were saying really that to create an animal plant hybrid, there's nothing else really like that until later on. Maybe it's genetically engineered, but it would have to be genetically engineered and probably done in a lab. And so that kind of took us to Earth, and we're kind of wondering what happened to Earth, and why were these sand trout brought to this planet to make it into deliberately, or else accidentally brought to Arrakis, and turn it from a garden planet into this desert world. So yeah, it's we can always join the pieces if we find out little tiny clues, one word here, one word there. So, oh yeah, Earth had been lost in history. What if Dune is Earth after a catastrophe or two? Loss of water and genetic engineering to create the worms. Water could have been taken when humans went off-world. I had thought about that actually, Brad, and I had thought about it, but it is simply that it's not, I don't think it is Earth, because we have all the wandering migrations of the Zen Sunni warriors from Earth. I get the impression. So I think certainly that within the guild navigation and stuff, if Arrakis is Mu Draconis, then there's no reason why a guild navigator can't take you to Earth. If you see what I mean, you can identify where our sun is within the Milky Way and the local group, etc. So a guild navigator should have no problem finding Earth. If you see what I mean. So I'm assuming the Earth is destroyed or somehow. Pyrosome, a giant inflatable Lord Kronk. Hi, Lord Kronk. Pyrosome, a giant inflatable underwater balloon or a tube-like worm that is actually made of hundreds of thousands of individuals known as zooids. Oh, interesting. Pyrosome, I might maybe saying that incorrect. Let's have a wee look. That sounds cool. Thank you for that. So, excellent. Thank you very much. Parasoma, free-floating colonial tunicates that usually live in the upper layers of open ocean and warm seas, although some may be found at greater depths. Excuse me. Are cylindrical or cone-shaped colonies up to 18 meters, 60 foot long, making up hundreds to thousands of individuals known as zooids. Colonies range in size from less than 1 centimeter to several meters in length, commonly called sea pickles. Thank you. Excellent. Some planktonic, which means their movement are largely controlled, bioluminescence, etc., etc. They look interesting. Fire body. They're quite interesting. Yeah, we were discussing, Lord Kronk, that we could have that there is some sort of, and who's to say it's an animal plant hybrid? Who's to say it's just one animal and one plant? Who knows? But yeah, they're quite interesting actually. Just having a wee, they are real things. They're looking at them on Wikipedia very quickly there, I think. Excellent. Bless the sea pickle in his water. Yeah, yeah. And I suppose also that we talked about the worm, the association with the worm and worms as in dragons without feet kind of things, if you know what I mean. In Irish mythology, the worm Crom Croch. We talked about there's the silkworm and the silk root, and in terms of economic trade, etc., and silk, and a number of things that can be overlaid on top of the worms as well, I think. But thank you very much for that, Lord Krug. That's excellent. I love looking at animals that are unusual, and yeah, again, we can't watch nature documentaries in our house because our dog Noodles goes nuts at the TV, unfortunately. So we very rarely get a chance to watch nature documentary, and I love nature documentaries. Watch that recent one there about my octopus teacher. If anybody hasn't seen it, I thought it was excellent, fascinating. Animals are incredible, I think. Brad Rose says, not if the, oh, here we go. Not if the law, not if it was lost before the Butlerian Jihad. Then the guild wouldn't know. It must have been lost long, long ago. Even if it was obliterated, you'd figure we'd still trace back to Saul. Yeah, I think there's enough Earth history. Who knows what's lost before with the Butlerian Jihad or what? It's is there a loss of knowledge that requires the return of schools? If you see what I mean, as a bit of a Canticle for Leibowitz type thing. Again, as I said, I don't know, guys, how the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. I know there's a lot of stuff that they've probably answered, and I'm completely oblivious to, and will remain so. Sadly. It's not that I don't disapprove of the writing or anything. I just life's too short, and I've got other stuff to read. If you see what I mean. But if all we have is speculation, Brad, then at least we have something, don't we? I think it's great. Whenever you do work, whenever I do work like this, the one thing I can't really do is speculate too much. So I try to find what Frank says, evidence that presented to you. Here's the evidence, and sometimes the evidence might need a bit of interpreting, but we have enough evidence to back this idea up. If you see what I mean. So idle speculation is not something that we want to do in this kind of work, but it doesn't mean we don't want to do it, if you see what I mean, because idle speculation can take us in all sorts of places, and I don't even really approve of the word idle with that. I think speculation, procrastination, daydreaming, wondering about something, I think is a great endeavor and takes effort. Doesn't necessarily take a lot of movement, I think, but there you go. But yeah, it's the whole the Earth mystery worm, and as I said, research into Dune will give you all the info on the animal vector, pretty much enough to go. let's go look at this. But nothing on the plant. Unless it's just got something to do with the whole, the process of kind of the worm's internal factory, which is pretty much the thing. It's how Frank sort of gets around there's not enough green plant life on Arrakis to sustain its environment. So he has it's the worms that basically fart out this carbon dioxide nitrogen O2 mix. And yeah, I mean, the farts of the worms, for example, there's an epic speculation there, and it's interesting if you think about the worms farting out, their excretia, the pre-spiced mass, that melange. What worm poop, as young Timothy Chalamet put it, basically does. How it's all tied into the ecology of the world, and if you apply that, like we were talking about the academic that sort of was going to you. Frank Herbert expects us to believe that worms fart oxygen, and this isn't helpful. But cows fart methane, if you see what I mean. And it's not that daft an idea, if to be honest with you. All animals excrete gases, and these are megafauna. These gigantic sandworms, they're not little things at all. We've no really idea. Again, we sort of get a sense. You don't get a massive sense of the scale of the planet, I think. Within Dune, the novel itself, you get that there are many thumpers this way or that. But the planet seems a little bit small to me sometimes. Excuse me, I'm gonna got a tickly nose. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna just blow my nose here, and I will remember to mute the microphone if I can find some tissue. Here we go. Bear with me a second, folks. There we go. That's better rather than that. I used to go out to the side of the room and blow my nose, and you can still hear me there. Excuse me. Joseph saying, Arrakis feels small from my perspective. Carol saying Arrakis is small. Yeah. Channel Mal is saying, hello all. Hi, Channel Mal. How's it going, sir? How are you keeping? Thanks for joining us. Carol, which says it, which doesn't explain why it doesn't have noticeable reduced gravity. So it is a kind of small world then. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you ever looked at just what we were saying there briefly. If you look at David Lynch's Dune, whenever you zoom in to the planet, it shows you the 4 planets. I always thought that Lynch had. Let me see. Where does House Carino come from? Their planet. No, not Solstice Secundus. Sorry. Their planet looked a bit like Gidi Prime, Caledon, Gidi Prime, Solstice Secundus, Arrakis. Oh, what's the? Somebody remind me. What's the Emperor's planet called? Kynes. That's it. Kynes looked a bit like Earth in the David Lynch film, I thought. Whenever it zoomed into the planet, it looked like the kind of the part it zoomed into, I think, kind of looked like the Arabian Peninsula, I thought. Oh, so we were talking about it seems small. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Let's have a wee look, which doesn't explain why it doesn't have. Channel Mal saying, isn't Arrakis described as giant somewhere? I must have made that up. If not, I've imagined it big since forever. I'm not too sure. And it's always tricky when it comes to planets and things like that they're big. What does that mean? If you see what I mean. I think you can. Carolyn says, I think you can calculate the diameter by taking one of the distances between 2 locations mentioned somewhere in the book and using the degrees written on the map in the book. Carol, we're going into Eratosthenes territory there, Carol. That's I think the requirement is to figure out the diameter of the. Does he not tell? Is there a map? Does not tell us possibly in the map. I think my book's actually somewhere else because I'm literally about 4 or 5 pages from the end, I think. Hmm. Lord Crunk says a major contributor to Earth's oxygen is ocean surface plankton. Maybe Arrakis' sand plankton could have a role in its oxygen levels. Well, they do, Lord Crunk. They're part of the part of the actual life cycle of the sandworm. And if you want, there's a wee diagram of this on the community section of the YouTube channel. Probably be down a fair bit somewhere. Excuse me. Um, but yeah, they actually do have something. Yeah, you're spot on. They're a part of it, and the life cycle of the worm is part of the oxygen production, the CO2, nitrogen, and oxygen mix that the worms produce. So yeah, very much so. Channel says regarding Arrakis size TVF, to myself, even a small planet makes for a fearsomely big desert. Yeah, that's very true, even for a desert creature. Mm. Yeah, Arrakis can be smaller than Earth and have the same gravity as a denser core. Yeah, well, we can get all sorts of sizes and things going on. And within Carthage to Arrakis is 200k. So I don't have a map handy, guys. Otherwise, I suppose we could all do the math together, couldn't we? That would be fun. So I just had a joyful day of teaching the really difficult sort of quadratic equation problems at the back of the maths GCSE paper to one of my students today. So I'm not too sure if that's why I'm saying I'm not too sure if I could be bothered doing the math, Carol. But yeah, it doesn't strike me as a massive planet or anything like that. And if we, I always think these things are relative. If you start thinking, oh, this is a big planet, and then you go, well, look at that one. It's the same with stars. What you think is a big star is, well, then like, wow. And then whenever you, okay, no, whoa, the scale just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Is there a literary reason for it to be either big or small? I don't know. I think it's possibly just to facilitate the action. That's all that I was thinking. Um, in some parts of the book, I get a real sense of distance, and others not, I suppose. Um, hmm. So just to sort of ponder, I wonder how big the planet is. Excuse me. We are probably told. But I wonder has Professor McNally got anything on that? I suppose there might be something in the Dune. I think I've got all my Dune books are not sitting where they should be tonight. Uh, that's probably because I've been bringing up an awful lot of books up here just to kind of show you guys. So, and I have books that operate as counterbalances. But very important counterbalances to whole things falling down. So the big heavies, as I like to call them. But no, I don't think it's just in terms of movement and action within the plot. But again, the whole universe is kind of made small by the guild. I think. Someone who did the suggested math says it comes out pretty much exactly the size of Earth's moon. Ah, excellent. Thank you very much, Karen. So it's a good bit smaller, but still a big enough planet, I suppose. I was just thinking it was a bit funny about Captain Kirk and the boys always beaming down. It's something maybe if you have a science fiction awareness about you that never once do they seem to land on a planet that's quite harsh on the gravity or allows them to bounce around a bit. Somebody, let's just check. I'm not sure that point is sustained by orbital physics. Oh dear. Yeah, leave it to the astrophysicists, etc. I suppose. But it would be interesting to have a look. I'm sure there is some information on the book on the map. Bear with me 1 second. I think it's just outside the room here. I'll go grab it just to see. So of course, there is a real Arrakis, isn't there? There is a real star. It's a star called Arrakis, I believe. We have the map at the back. There we go. 20 thumpers of palm. Is it the southern polar region, northern polar region? So yeah, it's not too informative a map, but it's nice to have books with maps. I think I love that kind of thing. Planet known as Dune, third planet of cannabis. That's the answer, isn't it? But there we go. Hmm. Oh, wow, sci-fi authors. Brad saying, "Well, sci-fi authors often underestimate size and distance of things. Populations of intergalactic empires should be in the hundreds of trillions." Yeah, you'd imagine they'd be pretty hefty. Joseph saying, "Have a great night, you all. Thank you for the great June chat." You're welcome, Joseph. Thanks very much. And hope you can join us again. Take care. Um, Channel Man says, "I believe the coming Broadway musical version will be called Dune, the Little Planet That Could." I think there's mutual potential in a Dune musical, a David Lynch's Dune musical. Mm, with a redub, I suppose, you know. Channel Man says, "Yes, of course, they don't expect the full Reddit investigation of numbers they invent on the fly." There's a lot of fact checking and stuff these days, I suppose. Um, I've watched it go quite badly wrong for a couple of people trying to act, you know, I can check your facts and misread something or misinterpret it quite badly. And yeah, I do rely on my old memory, I have to say, guys, whenever I'm doing this. And I've been doing it deliberately. I could have all of this stuff sitting around me and checking everything as I go. And it's not really the point, I suppose. The point is to answer any questions you have. It's not exactly Viva conditions, so I'm not too bothered if I can't remember something after all this time. But it's more fun to just talk about it and dig it out of my memory and work at it as a bit of a fan, I think, rather than only any kind of academic approach, you know. But yeah, all right. The book mentions the gravity on Arrakis being 0.9ish of a standard G when the Atreides arrive. There you go. Good to have those details, isn't it? So quite close to Earth. Yeah, probably we could probably get enough information, but from a close read on the planet. And I dare say there's some in Willis McNally's encyclopedia. Whatever I've done with it, I must have put it somewhere. See if it should be on the shelf behind me. Oh, but no, I'd actually brought so many books up from downstairs that I had to start taking a few back down. It was getting silly, folks. But yeah, Reddit's a bit of a funny place. I have to say, I was not impressed by Reddit one bit, and found it very hostile. And I thought it was a place for. I genuinely got the sense that I might be wrong about this, but I thought Reddit, as in I've read it, was a place for people who are interested in books and literature, that kind of thing. Anything readable. I might be wrong. But yeah, we left Reddit pretty quickly. Just not wasting our time with that nonsense, you know. And it is a wee bit sad, I suppose. We don't encounter the whole internet trolling and stuff, kind of thing like that. I'm generally the wrong sort of person to do that to. But um, it was quite bizarre. I found Twitter a better sort of, not that I think I don't know. I know Twitter has its things, but I just kind of I'm putting a video up on Twitter and occasionally comment on something, but don't really interact too much. But YouTube itself seems to have a better vibe about it, I think, just in terms of getting these interactions and so on, and even the comments generally have been pretty positive. I'll get quite a few nasty ones about the loud music, I have to say, but it wasn't too intentional or anything like that. It's just trying to find a way to work, and now we've got it fixed. So those have stopped. Oh dear! But the grief you get for not being able to hear properly sometimes, Charles Mao says, "I went to Reddit looking for a warm and well-read community of kindly individuals." So I am right then. It is about reading, isn't it? It's meant to be the focus of it, if you like. Yeah. Is that what is that? Where are you getting that quote from, Charles Mao? I think it's yeah. I don't know. Perhaps Arrakis has a massive uranium core, making it so dense that it can be as small as the moon, yet pretty normal gravity. We're on to I suppose there's all sorts of things you could think about the planet. Wonder how much it has changed. That's the thing, we never really got to figure out quite what sort of planet it was. But yeah, I don't. I think we were suggesting I wouldn't think it would be Earth at all. Um, but I still enjoy the mystery of Earth, I think. Hmm. Brad says, if the Fremen take the water from the dead when they let the blind wander off. Oh, sorry, then why let the blind wander off? If you're dead, you're dead, but killing for water isn't acceptable. Look at Jackaruchi. That's the Aussie spelling. It's a good point. You would say it's a waste of water, isn't it? Why don't they just commit? Why don't they just fall on their knife? like Uliet does whenever. Um, so yeah, I suppose it's. I don't know. There's something Oedipal about it, and I mean I don't mean in the Freudian sense. Something about that facing your doom, the blind walking into the desert. Um, the thing with the Jacurutu Fremen is that they're known for taking the water of people who aren't already dead. I suppose if you see, what I mean, they kill to get water, and my understanding is that it was their own people, whereas the Fremen don't do that. They don't kill their own. So it's seen as a kind of type of cannibalism, vampirism almost, I think. Um, yeah, Karen says, yeah, Reddit is often the opposite of that quote, was probably the joke. Yeah, thank you, got that, Karen. I was just wondering if it was a particular comment from somebody who then went on to find that quite horrifically wrong. Channel Mouse says, Doc, regarding Reddit, no, it isn't. Sorry, I was sarcastically rephrasing you because Reddit famously aggressive and ego driven. Some good, but plenty of bad. Ah, I see. No, that's okay. That's what I thought. Is that something similar to what I said? I've went there like, yeah, I thought it'd be a place for bookish discussion, and I thought that this what this kind of work was. But no, I got slagged off. A couple of people said a couple of really nice things actually, and somebody compared my work to Northrop Frye's work, and I thought that was really, really nice. I got a couple of nice comments that I actually saved from it, but then it just became a range of attacks and almost psychopathic, if you see what I mean, where someone will attack you for something that you've actually say you haven't done it, but you've done it, and then they come in and say, "Oh, I'm just trying to help you. Let me help you with your work." No, go away, whoever you are. What the hell? It was that kind of, how do I don't need your help. I never asked for your help, and I don't know who you are. My work's done. So I'm just just trying to present it. If you see, I found it quite weird. But as I said, I'm one of these people that I just don't have time for nonsense, if you see what I mean. So I've been trying to pick and choose carefully what I use on the web, and I've been away from a lot of this stuff for a long time, deliberately, because I don't like it too much these days. But I am enjoying the YouTube, and just sort of backing it up with Twitter is enough for me to keep an eye on. I think. But it's a pity because I thought Reddit particularly had a lot of people posting up. Well, then I realized a lot of the content that's there is actually from YouTube. To be honest. Hmm. So Karen says, "Rest in peace, Uliet. Who knows what came over him?" Well, I'll tell you what, Karen. In terms of getting back to our planetologist, I find Uliet's character, and this is the problem. One of the problems with some things that Frank comes up with, I'd say it's a problem that a lot of authors have, is that life is too cheap to them. So to have a character who's a trained killer sent to kill Pardot Kynes, get rid of this madman. And the guy turns around and says, remove yourself, and that immediately makes this guy go and kill himself. And everyone around's going, what just happened? So as much as it's a key element in driving forth everything that happens, Uliet's suicide is kind of what in depth makes the whole Pardo thing ingrained upon the Fremen. They see it as a holy sign, and that it's part of a myth. And Uliet becomes an Uma, doesn't he? And then they start looking at Pardo as a sadist. He's a holy madman, and it's so Uliet's suicide is in a sense responsible for an awful lot of things. And it's, you don't know, is there some kind of superstitious reason for it, or why does a man just for no absolute reason whatsoever, when being told to remove himself, just kill himself? And it doesn't know, as you say, Karen, who knows what came over him. Well, a writer came over. See what I mean? It is one of those things that puts me off. Right, some kinds of writing. You can understand when a character dies, but no person gives up their life easy. I think nobody. And so, whenever you read that character, if you want to know the one thing that could possibly wreck the verisimilitude of Dune, it's Uliet's suicide. To me, I just wise up. You know what I mean? I don't know. People don't do that. Life isn't that cheap. Certainly not in the situation where he's in, I think. But yeah. So it doesn't seem, that's the one thing that I know we have to suspend disbelief. I get that, but to me, with character, it's the one thing that you've destroyed that character, and you've made that character unbelievable, and all of the actions afterwards, because this guy's just gone, yeah, certainly I will, of course, immediately commit suicide. Just no, just unbelievable. It's too unbelievable, if you see what I mean. Unless he had a sandworm in the brain or something, I don't know. Brad says, so yeah, you'd figure the social expectation would be you'd neck yourself, don't spill the water, for a double good, and you speak for the tribe. Yeah, you think if you're blind, I think it's kind of meant to be, sometimes they leave the blind to the desert is because the trip has to go on. And so there's a necessity there. But as for, yeah, you're blind, would you like to hang around until we go on the move the next time? And we'll just leave you there. I don't know. I suppose it's possible that there's lots of quite well adapted blind Fremen who walking around on their own who've managed to survive. Hmm. Dear, oh dear. So Daniel and Marty came over him with it. Who knows? The What makes Ulet do what he does is, yeah, it could be a manipulation from somebody far in the future. Daniel and Marty, if they're Frank and Bev, then absolutely, why not? Karen. But if you understand what I mean, it just doesn't make sense in any way. And we all live in different parts of the world, but people commit suicide, etc. But they don't do it for reasons like that. And it's unbelievable. But then at the same time, it's part of the appendices. And I suppose that's the interesting bit. It's not set up with a historical chronicle or as part of the myth, the process that we read the book. And I think that because we're aware that there's always a level of mythology within Dune, we don't have that same awareness in the appendix of that story. And I think that's why it comes out. It's just my personal little foible about Uliet, is I think what he does is unbelievable. And it kind of messes a wee bit. And the universe is governed by accident and error. Well, Carol, that's really the ultimate point that Frank's trying to make, isn't it? It's that as much as we can, all of these plans and all of these long-term designs, etc., and kind of what does for most people in the Dune universe is the random, the unexpected, accident, error. It's a very well made point, Carol, and it's kind of what Frank's trying to tell you to do. I suppose as much as he's saying you can look at things in terms of ecological time frames, that we can look at, we need long term thinking. If you don't factor in that something's going to go, then there's a flaw in your initial thinking. And if your thinking is systemic, and you don't accept that accident and misadventure can intrude upon your system, I suppose it's understanding that all systems are subsets of other systems. If you really want to go into systemic thinking, the entire universe is a system, but systems are part of human thinking, if you see what I mean. But yeah, everything's ping pong chaos. It's all around us. Karen says the day the flesh shapes and the Uliet removes himself, or however that quote went. It is just a bizarre thing, isn't it? And it is a great little adventure. The appendix one. It's one of the things that I will finish Dune tonight, the story Dune, which means I'm going to sit and read the appendices, and I'm really looking forward to it. But the wee miniature adventure with Liet Kynes is an excellent read. I would even suggest, so few people read it, they should publish it as a little pamphlet book. You see what I mean? Why not? Or do a wee comic of it, even. It would suit a comic, wouldn't it? The wee miniature adventure. Let's have a wee nosy here. Just looking for this wee code. Yeah, here we are. I mean, it says it's doubtful that Kynes even focused on his would-be executioner. He was talking to a group that spread around him at a cautious distance. He walked as he talked, a short circle gesturing. Open water, Kynes said. Walk in the open without stillsuits. Water for dipping it out of a pond. Portugals. The knife man confronted him. Remove yourself, Kynes said, and went on talking about secret wind traps. He brushed past the man. Kynes' back stood open for the ceremonial blow. What went on in that would-be executioner's mind cannot be known now. Did he finally listen to Kynes and believe? Who knows? But what he did is a matter of record. Liet was his name. Older Liet. Liet walked 3 paces and deliberately fell on his own knife, thus removing himself. Suicide? Some say Shai Halud moved him. Talk about omens! From that instant, Kynes had but to point, saying, Go there. Entire Fremen tribes went. Men died, women died, children died. But they went. There you go. That says it all about these guys, you know. No, I didn't, Brad. I meant to have a look at that one. I didn't at all. I'm sorry, but it was definitely something of interest to me. The starfish that you were talking about the other day. I will have a wee nosy at that. Must have a wee nosy because I do look at these things, you know, guys. But starfish in the Great Barrier Reef, yeah, quite interesting. I think there's a lot of problems with the Barrier Reef at the minute, isn't there? I think their impact on the Great Barrier Reef. Brad's just saying, did you find the time to look up the impact of the crown OT starfish on the Great Barrier Reef? I didn't, but I will get to it, Brad. It's quite interesting. I think that they're under the Great Barrier Reef is a lot closer than the cane. The damage that they do to the Great Barrier Reef is a lot closer than the cane toad because of the COT starfish advance is pure destruction. Let me have a wee quick look at it now. Actually, just very... Crown of Thorns starfish. Interesting names, isn't it? Ooh. There we go. Yeah, with Crown of Thorns starfish. Acanthaster planky. Large starfish that preys upon hard or stony coral polyps. Crown of Thorns starfish receives its name from venomous thorn-like spines that cover its upper surface, resembling the biblical crown of thorns. It's one of the largest starfish in the world. Let's just have a wee look there. Behavior, product, lifestyle, ecology. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Shit. Okay. Yeah, I get you, Brad. That's pretty harsh, isn't it? I'm sorry, folks, if you have a look at the crown of thorns starfish. I'm just looking at a coral before and a coral reef afterwards, and it's not good. And then, right, after a planky predation in the storm. Wow, I'm going to have a wee nosy at that more. That's quite impressive, that level of destruction. And it's the thing is, it's a natural process, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that, Brad, but yeah, that looks fascinating. That's hardcore. And I take it must be. See, I find it hard to think of aquatic life as invasive species, if you see what I mean, just because of the nature of think of the world as ocean. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. There we go. By Shai Halud's Here's Gluteus Maximus, folks. That was a quick, violent sneeze. Let's see. I hope I don't sneeze again. I'm a very bad sneezer. Once I start, I can't tend to stop. But yeah, that's fascinating, Brad. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Where's my wee thingy to muffle me cough on my hand? That's a good idea. So Carolyn says maybe Liet slipped and people just thought he did it on purpose. Could have been a banana skin, Carolyn. Yeah, you're quite right. And again, things is presented as myth, maybe, or it says it is a matter of record, but that doesn't mean anything. Records change and get altered over time. Lord Crunk is saying, if Kynes hadn't been killed, how would that have impeded Paul's place as the Fremen quasi-messiah? That's a good question. If he hadn't been killed, I don't think it would have impeded his. I'll go with that, Lord Crunk. I think he would happy enough marrying his daughter, and I think Kynes would have been full on with the. You'd have been part of it. Absolutely. So I don't think if Kynes had survived, I don't think he would have impeded um, Paul's role in that sense. I think he would have been seen more as, again, when this thing happens, that he would be relegated rather. Well, he's more of a hero than a messiah in that sense. But often these people are relegated to the role of prophet, that predicted what would come. But I think Paul takes up Kynes' dream. So I think Kynes would have been absolutely on board with it and would have been in a position like Stilgar and Gurney, etc. But it is an interesting question. Thank you, Lord Crank. Um, Brad Rose says, Karen, kind of like how no one ever has to go to the toilet unless it advances the plot. Yeah, we never see people taking a crap, on the, very rarely actually, unless it is, as I said, John Travolta on the getting machine gunned or something like that. Oddly enough, people taking dumps don't appear in a lot of religious books. you know, yeah, we tend to leave out bodily fun. In fact, well, actually, the Iliad doesn't do that. People's bits and guts and all go everywhere, I think. Or Eliot was so embarrassed from slipping in spice coffee that he just decided mid-fall that he might as well remove himself. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think they should just put a banana skin in there and make it at least slightly comedic, if you see what I mean. Oh dear. Brad saying cane toads only kill other animals. Crying OT starfish wipe out the reef itself. Yeah. And as itself, I suppose the reef is an organism, is it? I'm not too sure. I'm not up on that aspect of biology, but I know it's home to millions and millions of creatures, or all sorts. Big lot of diversity in reefs. Chris Life, hi Chris Life. Are you planning on doing an episode on the appendices, or have you already? I wasn't planning it, but I certainly could. I'm going to do a couple of wee things on Dune just to sort of round it up. So I would sort. Yeah, actually, do you know what, Chris Life? That's a good idea. We should do a wee something on the appendices. As I said, just from talking to people, I get a lot of people who've read Dune don't read the appendix. The appendices, and so they miss out on a lot of the terminology that helps them understand it. There's Bene Gesserit religious motives, religion within the Imperium, the Spacing Guild, a lot of stuff's there. But in particular, Appendix 1 is a mini adventure. So I really enjoy reading it. And every time I've read Dune, I've read the whole lot, And so yeah, I would happily do something on the appendices. I'm working on something at the moment on the Pelopids, which is, I suppose, the set of Greek myths what are overlaid on the Atreides at the minute, Chris. So once that's done, yeah, I think the appendices in general would be well worth doing a wee program maybe on each one. So I'll look into that once, hopefully, time permitting. There is stuff on the appendices throughout this work, I suppose. You'll see them referenced here and there, but it's where the stuff that's in the appendix is quite relevant to what we're talking about, and there is a lot of info there. One of the things I was saying, Chris Life, is I think it's a really bad, if you think about how you publish a book. And Dune, there's been a lot of people talking about there's a particular misspellings in Dune, in the publishing format, and where does it fix it in certain editions. But one thing I've actually noticed over the years is that at the back of Dune itself, there are a lot of Arabic, Germanic, or you name it, all sorts of types of words in Dune. And it's really handy to have a glossary of terms. I've been reading it again. I keep hit the odd word that I didn't recognize tonight. Go to the glossary of terms and that's what that is, and on we go. It's really handy. And I'll say this, I don't understand why they don't republish the glossary of terms at the back of each Dune book, or update it for each Dune book. I think it would make a good addition to the publishing medium, if you see what I mean. Channel Mao says, regarding how would Paul the Messiah be affected if no Kynes? If Kynes didn't Paul unleash the existing Fremen commitment to terraforming Dune and taking part rather than create it? If no Kynes, then no fanatics. Unleash the existing Fremen commitment to no. Kynes it's well on the way. And you get that from chatting to the Fremen. Stilgar says we've got so many of these, only a few of us. they start to tell you about how much that they've been doing. The Fremen have been at this for a while, and again, only Liet needs to point go, and whole Fremen tribes will go to their death. So at the point where Paul is arriving, if Kynes wasn't there, it's not it's not like there's a mysticism around it, I think, is the term that's used, and of course they are using the Fremen, um, but it is mystical. There's a point even where they talk about Pardot's innocence, single-mindedness, but I get the sense that no, there's a level of put it this way, Pardot's kind of able to hop on the Bene Gesserit missionaria protectiva, if you see what I mean, which already exists there. So there's things that what Pardot does link into the Bene Gesserit myth, which is already set up eventually to help manipulate any Bene Gesserit who might end up on that planet. So I think what happens is that the Kynes family accidentally end up taking a role in moving forward those myths and become sort of prophets, the wise holy man before Paul Atreides, if you see what I mean. As I said, they call him a sadist, mad enough to be holy. Isn't that it? I think it is the way it's put. So no, I think it simply whenever Paul arrives, everything that the Fremen have been doing under Liet, here he is. Here's the fulfillment of the dream. And remember the Kwisatz Haderach, the Lisan al-Gaib is a voice from the outer world, someone who'll come and talk, tell them what to do. And he is also the Kwisatz Haderach, the shortening of the way. The long-term ecological dream is about to get a lot quicker under Paul Atreides, and it's going quite quickly under Liet Kynes already. That's the problem. It's happening too quick. It's only when we get to Leto II, who has that realization that it's moving too fast and it's not going right, and we're going to destroy the worms. If you see what I mean. So, but as I said, if Liet didn't kill himself, then you wouldn't get that mysticism attached to Pardot, which leads all the Fremen to follow Liet blindly, which makes them all perfectly set up for when Paul arrives. And it is kind of handy that Liet's out the way, I suppose, because it would be another tier, and he's not altogether. Liet's enough of an imperial citizen, I suppose, as well as being a Fremen. Again, why it's the part, isn't it? He serves two masters in some way. But no, I think so. If no Kynes and no fanatics, I don't know. I think yeah, no. We're told. Just finally to answer your question, channel them out properly. Just that little quote. All Liet had to do was it all Pardot had to do? Let me see. Hang on, I've got it right here. It tells you it all, really. Bear with me a wee quick second till I find it. Just up here. Yeah, here's your fanaticism, channel now, okay? From that instant, Kynes had but to point saying, go there. Entire Fremen tribes went. Men died, women died, children died, but they went. That's your fanaticism. So no, it's well in place long before. And as I said, I think it's the Kynes men use accidentally fall into the aspect of the missionaria protectiva that's set up by the Bene Gesserit. And that's why, of course, that's only set up on particularly harsh planets, so it makes sense that it would be on a desert world. And that's why Paul and his mother can walk into that safety, if you see what I mean. And it's pretty much assuming there's a Bene Gesserit, it has to be part of that myth. There has to be a child as well. The Bene Gesserit can control their own bodies, etc. So we always assume that if a Bene Gesserit is put into that position, that they can just get pregnant and produce a Lisan al-Gaib, if you see what I mean. It's part of their manipulation of religion and myth. So there we go. Just coming up to midnight here, folks. So I'll go for another 5 minutes and wrap things up a wee bit, just to keep an eye on my throat, because it's a bit better today, I think. But I totally nearly lost my voice last night. I've still got a few more of these to go, just till we finish. I really don't want to miss one. I'm enjoying doing this. Brad says, so if you've got any wee final comments, throw them out there and we'll just read them up, and we'll try and wrap up in about 5 minutes, folks, if you don't mind. Brad says, I think the crown of thorns starfish came in on the bilgewater of a ship or they could be natural, but humans took out the fish that were their predator. Can't remember right now. Excellent. How many hours till our screening? Is Karen is asking. Let's see. If we move into the team, that would be 72 plus 13.5, I think. So 85 and a half hours to go. Carol, if you want to know how many hours to my screening, approximately, give or take a minute or two. So there you go. Looking forward to it. Only enough, my car's been out of commission for quite some time, so we've got the car fixed as well, so we can drive to it. Saying that, I don't think we'll take my car. It's easier to get in and out of the city in the little one, you know. But Channel Mal was thinking more of Pardot than Liet. Great answer to my question. I'm convinced and appreciate. Thank you. Oh, no worries. Sorry, I was getting them mixed up. But they're kind of reiterations of the same thing anyway, Channel Mal. But yeah, no, the Fremen are. I think the Fremen are kind of waiting almost. They're geared for it. And as I said, I think that the missionary protective that's been shown that and you also get a sense of the religious suffering that the Fremen have been going through, and I think particularly their separations because they're denied the Hajj, and we talked a wee bit about them being a break off of Islam, third was it offshoot of the third Muhammad, I believe they're called. Pardon me, and yeah, so I think in terms of we talk about the ecology, religious ecology as well, and the environment that the Fremen live in is very much geared towards that kind of what we talk about, those kind of Abrahamic religions only developing out of a desert environment, if you see what I mean. And whenever it is very interesting, if you look at biblical stories, for example, ancient world stories that are from that, if you do understand deserts, that actually kind of makes a bit more sense to some of them. But you're more than welcome, Channel Mal. That's what we're here for, really. I suppose to do my best to answer these questions if we can. Brad Rose saying, Karen, is the feast seen? Oh, yes, Karen, we're all asking before we wrap up. A yes or no will do. No spoilers, please. No banquet scene. Thought so, Karen. Thank you very much. So, just in terms of what we were saying, Karen, it was about, we were talking earlier about gender swapping Liet Kynes. And we've had this discussion about why it's a problem only in terms of Frank Herbert's ecological message. So, simply put, don't know how to think about it in terms of, I'll let you know when I see the film, but in terms of Frank Herbert's ecological message being diluted, we have the Western man gone and it's now a Western woman, and our big educator, apart from the planet itself, is Liet Kynes and the banquet scene gone. This is where Herbert's ecological message is coming in, and I think one of the screenwriters, it looks like the cast and crew are all saying that this isn't modern thinking. It's not our thinking on ecology, etc. And they've altered things a wee bit, and we do understand that the film is big because the book's big, But we were just talking about the key ecological aspects of the book, and the banquet scene is probably one of the most important scenes in the book in terms of the political power plays, the economics, the ecology, everything's there, and it sets Paul up as showing you that Paul is indeed a young man capable of running a major house, So we've got and we don't have the mini adventure with Liet. So what it's looking like, and again, I'm not just in terms of Frank's message of ecology, is it's looking like it's being dropped. I don't know if Karen can comment on that. And again, you've only seen the first half of Dune. No matter what, we're only seeing half a film. Just letting my wife know that as well, that though it's not going to be a whole film, you're going to see half a movie and then we're going to have to wait a couple of years, But there you go. But thank you very much for letting us know that, Karen, because we were speculating on it earlier and we were going, Karen's the person to ask, is the banquet scene there, Well, listen, folks, tomorrow then is the Fremen as geomorphic agents. We're going to get to see, taking this thread with the ecologists along. And Karen's just saying, hard to say from first part. That's why I'm curious to hear your thoughts once you see it. Yeah, it's a question of how much is it Frank Herbert's Dune. That's what I'm talking about, really, if you see what I mean. rather than does it look like Dune or does it have its substance as well? That's what I'm. Has it got its ecological chops? Has it got Dune's gravitas? I like using that word. It's a great word. But Dune has it in spades, if you know what I mean. The film isn't trying to replace the book. Totally understand that they're different mediums, but it's in particular, Carolyn. I think it's the message we talk about is Dune relevant, the timing of the film, and why is it relevant? And if you have to ask me, absolutely relevant, more so than ever. And it should get us thinking about ecology, about our leaders, etc., etc. Not our thinking. Sounds like Jodorowsky's Dune to me. Well, it depends on whose thinking it is, but I'd argue we shouldn't take our scientific leads from actors and filmmakers, etc. It's good that they have access to audiences that they can get messages out, but they're often the wrong one. I think we watch actors make complete idiots out of themselves on TV all the time, don't we? It's just it's starting to become even like a bit of ambush TV over here, getting all the celebrities to sign up for a very silly cause. What was the one they had? Was it cake or something? I don't know. That kind of sort of reality TV, but there you go. But it was just a curious thing, and I am keeping an open mind, guys, no matter what. I suppose it's just that I've gone into these books to a real, put years of my life into them, and I do think Herbert's. I don't agree with all of Herbert's ideas on ecology, by the way, but I do think that they're pretty important to the book, to the story, actually. So I don't know what you think. But listen, folks, thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's been great crack. We're getting a lot better at this, aren't we? We're staying on topic a lot better. And the comments and the questions are coming much thicker and faster. It makes it a lot easier for me, actually. It makes it seem very natural. So thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow night after the episode, which will look at the Fremen and how they are used as geomorphic agents by these two ecologists and eventually by the Atreides as well. And then the episode after that will be the banquet scene. And then we've got pretty much the final transformations of the planet, with all the different things that happen to it. And then I'll be off to see Dune at that point. And then we'll see you all on Thursday for the final, what are my recommendations and conclusions to the Dune series, which I quite enjoy. But it'll be nice to look at again. It has the big, massive bibliography at the end of it. So I will say good night, folks, to save my voice. Otherwise, I'd keep going. And thank you very much. And I'll see you all tomorrow at the same time. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks for the stream, says Karen. Thank you, guys. And take care now and look after yourselves. Bye-bye now. Do, 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 do.